So, welcome everyone. Welcome back. Welcome Jane, my wife and
Hello.
coach and business partner in TLC, Transformational Leadership Coaching. And this is the part 10 of 10 in the series that we decided to put together as video backup for the topics in my book, Create Your Own Life Story. So for anyone that hasn't got it, what we've done is we've linked a load of QR code links to each of the well, not each, but many of the chapters, just as an extra sort of icing backup to what we've been trying to talk about with the tools, which, we all need tools, strategies, practices, self-coaching to get through nowadays. So whether you're listening on podcasts or watching on YouTube, or these are the QR links that you're joining from the book, welcome. And really we're looking at today at energy and energy management because it's such an important subject. I mean, Jane, energy in the last few years has been the most important thing to help clients with, isn't it?
It has. And, chi energy is what the Eastern people call it. And, we do Qigong in the morning, which is a practice of working with the energy in our bodies. It's something that we can't see, but it's something that we definitely feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, it's our emotional state, our life force energy.
Yeah.
So, we have a biochemistry in the body of serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and that all helps our energetic state.
Yeah.
So when we wake up in the morning, we have, if you like, a pot of energy.
Yeah.
And it's looking at how we're going to use that pot of energy, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I the way I put it is, how are we going to spend our energy wisely? And straight off the bat, I want to talk about, it's energy. We are not talking about kilojoules.
No.
Kilojoules is the metric for calories, which is, we eat food, we turn it into calories, it drives our body. This is a life force, a chi, you could call it a spiritual electricity.
An energetic field.
Emotion. Look at things like motivation, inspiration, desire, drive, passion, heart. These are inspiration is the big one. Wayne Dyer always talked about it, and the inspiration is to breathe in spirit. Or if you look in the dictionary, it's, mental and emotional stimulant. So, how do you measure inspiration? How do you measure life force? How do you measure desire? Because these things are real within us. They are an energy that drive us forward, and yet we can't measure them like calories. And I think what we have understood is that if you start to work with your chemistry, this is why biohacking has become so important. And I work with my sports elite people a lot on this, because for them to be in the right state, what we call emotional state, means that when they're 2-0 down at half time at home and not playing very well, they can have a reset, and they can change their mind, which changes their state, and they can come out and they're a different player in the second half. Because as we understand, if you change the chemistry and the emotions within you, you increase your energy, your vitality, your purpose, your passion. So it's very much a mindset thing, but it's also linked to the heart, isn't it?
It's heart intelligence, isn't it? It's, the heart has a brain too. It has neurons kept in the heart. And so, there is an energetic field. Some people call it an aura, but, it is an energetic field. You can heartfelt something, can't you? Yeah. A friend of ours, Katie, used to say, what is love? You can't see it. You can't put it in a test tube, but people know when you talk about love. You can tell by someone's expression in their eyes. When they love somebody, their eyes light up. It's like a lit charge around you.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, because we coach a lot now over the phone, we didn't fall into the trap, did we, in the 2 years of the pandemic? Didn't fall in the trap of trying to go for Zoom burnout, where we were having all our clients over Zoom calls. We instead kept it to phone calls, and that protected our energy, because it takes I think, talking to a lot of my clients, takes a lot of energy to focus on the screen and try and work out what you think is a person in front of you, but actually your brain is working overtime trying to put all the mini dots together to put the picture back together. And people talk about being exhausted by Zoom fatigue, and I think that's a real thing. They just weren't used to it. And, there are so many other cues when you're talking to people, eyes, body language. I mean, presence, that's, the Dalai Lama's always talked about presence, that you can walk into a room and you feel the presence of the room, the space, the location. And when we're with people, even if they don't say anything, and you just look in their eyes, straight away, you've got a good idea of where their energy is. It's almost like they give off a vibe. And if you really dig down to the science of this, Heart Math in California are really, as we know, we've followed them, a bit like Joe Dispenza has for many years, and Bruce Lipton, and a lot of our friends, we've all followed Heart Math, and we, their science is saying very much that we give out an electromagnetic pulse, a field that goes into the field. And if you are attuned to it, if you're sensitive to it, which we are, we're probably very highly empathic and sensitive, and you will pick these things up. And you've that story when you went to the concentration camp in
Dachau. Yes, I mean, if you go there, you don't hear a bird sing. There's such an air of the presence of something deeply unhappy, death resounds still. The energy there is not cleared because it's also so much human misery. I think it still has an effect in that place. So it's not always a person's energy. It can be a place energy as well. And as you said, when you walk into a room, there might be two people in there that you know well. And because you know them well, you can look at them and you can think, what's just been said? Have they just had an argument? And they'll say, oh, no, we're fine. But you know that they're not fine. They're just not telling you. And that's their choice. But you pick it up.
You feel it.
Especially if you're an empathic person, or if you're walking down the road and someone's coming towards you, if their hand, their shoulders are hunched up and things, and their brow is crossed and sort of furrowed, that they're not very happy. They might be angry, they might be depressed, but you can just tell. It's almost like you can't see their energetic field, but you can feel their energetic field, like, oh, that feels like a cross person, or that person isn't
I mean, it's even funny, the language.
Animals can do it all the time.
They can. And
animals pick things up before humans do.
Yeah. And I think, the science shows that our heart picks things up before our brain does, because as we know, the heart is actually sending out a lot stronger impulses than the brain is. And actually, I think, isn't it, the heart sends a lot more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So when we talk about intuition and sixth sense, and cricketers have talked about this, why they are a fraction of a second ahead of the game before the ball. They kind of know where the ball is going to hit their bat, and they're ahead of it. And I think intuition, I mean, like the energy, even the words that we use with energy, if we go into a room or we go into a big space and there's a big, music event going on, what do we talk about? We talk about vibration. We talk about atmosphere. These are all energies that you've not even spoke to someone, and yet you can go to a party and straight away within a second, even when no one said anything to you, you can go, I don't like the atmosphere here, or I really like the atmosphere here. And you've just picked it up on a sixth sense level. And I think in the years ahead, me and you often talk about our inner senses, which we're noticing that people are tuning up a lot more now. So their ability to have insight, their ability to have intuition, imagination, all those inner senses are tuning up for whatever reason. In this time of history, we're seeing it in clients, aren't we? And so, if we sort of look at, when let's flip it and look at when our energy is low, what is going on, because then we're going to look at when our energy is high, and then finally we're going to finish in this segment with what solutions and practices can we do to maintain our energy or lift it. So let's start with energy low. What sort of things are happening to us when our energy is low?
Well, say you're coming out of burnout and you've got some energy, but you don't have a lot of energy. It's like a battery. You can charge your energy up, but it doesn't hold for long enough. So, you might feel you're having a good day, and you might meet a friend for a coffee, and, they might start chatting away, and you see, you feel okay, but then they might start challenging you with the conversation, not in an unkind, nasty way, but just something you don't agree with, or you're just not ready for it. And you'll say, oh yes, yeah, carry on the conversation. And then when you come away, you suddenly, they've told you their problem or something, and you come away and you feel really heavy with it, because you haven't got enough charge to bounce it off and just say, that's not my stuff. That doesn't belong to me. But you sort of, they feel better because you've said, oh, are you all right? And, help them. But actually you haven't helped yourself, because you've carried it and you've walked off, and this little storm kind of cloud above their head's gone, but it's just switched over to you.
I always laugh at that. And we've all had conversations with
we've
people.
All done that, haven't we?
And we walk away from the conversation. They say,
Jane,
I feel fantastic. I feel on top of the world. I feel a different person in the hour we've had a coffee. And there's you. It feels like 50 shopping bags have been dumped on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's energy transferring, isn't it?
That's it. That's it. And, it's not that someone means to do that to you. You have to be in charge of your energy, and maybe, put some boundaries down and put some sort of limits, like, okay, I'm only going to spend half an hour with this person, because today I know I can't.
I haven't got it to give.
I haven't got it to give.
Yeah.
And often we try and squeeze too much in, and we give our energy to the wrong places,
and the wrong people at the wrong time.
And the wrong people at the wrong time.
When we talk about the word, don't we, personal power. Don't give your power away. And what we mean by that when we talk to clients is that, we've got so much energy inside of us. Don't leave all your boundaries open. And don't just let other people dump all their rubbish on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Because we all want to help. We all want to support. We're hardwired for love and passion and empathy, but not at the expense of
draining your own battery.
Draining your own battery. I use the expression of the pond. We all have a pond. And what are people pouring into your pond? Are they pouring negativity in, or they pour in sort of positivity in? And I think what we have to do is look at, when we start to manage energy, which means really audit where our energy is going and where it is depleting, and where we are replenishing our energies. We've got to look at events, creative sort of endeavors. We've got to look at people. We've got to look at the type of tasks and challenges that we do. Once we've got a good idea of where our energies are going, we can work out things like this, like, who are our energy vampires? What things are draining our energy? We know that if we're through periods of lots of anger and lots of stress and lots of fear and chronic sort of anxiety going on, that's going to drain our energy a lot, isn't it? It crashes, it weakens our nervous system,
and our immune system,
which then leads on to what's it, psychoneuroimmunology. And don't ask me to spell it, because I'm not going to go there, being a dyslexic. But basically, psychoneuroimmunology is the fact that emotions, out of harmony, stress, when it goes mad, will lead to that nervous system breakdown. Nervous system being emotions, and that will then radically impact on our ability to heal, won't it?
Yes, yeah. Well, and we get sick, and it's harder to get back up again.
Yeah.
But also, if we are around people that we call radiators, they can uplift us, and I think in coaching we are natural people that uplift other people, but we also have to look at our own energy, because if you keep holding the door for everyone else, you're not going to go through that door. So you need to give yourself some of that energy.
And isn't it funny, when you told me about your childhood, in convent and Catholic, and when I've talked to other friends that have had a similar background, that mentality is very ingrained, isn't it? About let everyone else go first, open the door for everyone else. You wait till last, serve other people first. It's a great endeavor in sort of outline, but actually when you take it too far,
exactly,
you never actually are there for yourself, are you?
Yeah, that's it. You've got to, everything has to have a balance.
Yeah. So, other things, Jane, that might bring our energy, down. I've always remembered what Mel, me and you, a few years ago went on Mel Collins' website, and she lives here in the town where we live in Totnes, and she was a governor up at Dartmoor Prison, and she appears regularly on the Jeremy Vine show, and she had a great book which has been one of our sort of to-go-to books, highly sensitive people.
Yeah.
And what Mel is saying, just for those who've not looked at her work, fantastic book, do check it out, because it's all about, Mel came to the conclusion when she was a governor up at Dartmoor Prison, one of the highest security prisons in the UK, that people, there could be roughly about 25% of the population are what she terms highly sensitive people, HSPs. We are HSPs, aren't we? We're highly sensitive, highly empathic. So we have to be very careful, because our energy is emitting like Wi-Fi. We're picking up other people's energy, and they're picking up ours in a very simple sort of energy metric level. And what Mel says is that when she was working up at the prison, she would walk into these rooms with murderers, and it was almost like every cell in her body went cold, because there was such a presence. We talk about the word presence again. They had such a presence, only a negative presence about them.
Troubled
and dark and heavy. And I think people that are sensitive, they do pick up that. And I think if you are out there and you're listening to this, and you are a highly sensitive person, we would recommend you getting Mel's book, workshops. They are fantastic. We've done one, didn't we? And it really starts to build your mindset around what energy is, and the importance that we must guard your energy and not give it, basically not spend it, Make sure you're spending it wisely, because you've only got so much.
Yeah, save some for yourself, basically.
Yeah.
That's good selfish.
Yeah.
It's something that you can do for yourself to help you manage your day better.
Yeah.
Because if you give all your energy away in the morning, you've got nothing left in the afternoon, and you've still got a few hours at work.
Yeah.
So it's working out the right things to do at the right time.
Yeah. So let's shift to the other slant then. Let's look at what gives us high energy, what replenishes our energy, what revitalizes it, what brings it up from your point of view.
So my point of view, I find that music, listening to music affects my mood. So it's all to go with my senses, really. What feels good.
Yeah.
Gives me good energy. What I listen to, what I look at, dancing, music. What else do I like? My Tai Chi, yoga, meditation. If I feel tired, if I do a quick meditation, that revitalizes me.
Yeah.
It helps me to let go of things that I'm carrying that I don't need to carry, because all our thoughts in our head can be a very heavy burden.
Yeah.
So, it helps me to put the bags down. I don't need to carry it. A few and breathing exercises. When people say, I haven't got time to do this, I haven't got time to do that, but actually breathing exercises really help you. It helps enormously with panic attacks. Because we lose the regulation of our breathing. But, just expanding the chest, shoulders back, a more relaxed posture, breathing in and out fully, a few deep breaths in and out will restore you.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't breathe very well, do we, a lot of us? When we're stressed, we breathe shallow, don't we?
Or we hold our breath. When I concentrate, I notice sometimes I'm actually holding my breath. So the lungs, heart and lungs are our two major organs. So, we need to exercise them properly. That's why going for a walk or going to the gym, running off that energy, sometimes energy begets more energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to know that, just have a 5-minute or 10-minute rest will give us energy.
Yeah. I've just noticed that, you mentioned that, and straight away I'm trying to breathe deeper and I'm trying to sit up straighter because, but it's a good point, because we forget that
It's awareness.
it is awareness, because the
Yeah.
more stress that we
Yeah.
get, I don't know if anyone out there has noticed, but the more stressed you get, the more you will start to either hold your breath, not breathe properly, or
Yeah.
you will do very shallow breaths rather than deep
Yes.
breaths. And actually, the more oxygen you can get in, you will calm your immune system, won't you?
Your autonomic
your nervous
nervous
system. You'll
Yeah.
calm that nervous system down. So a few that I've sort of noticed with my clients and myself is getting outdoors straight away amongst trees. That is something that will replenish your energy. You might be stressed, but there's not yet a person that has said to me after a nice hour walk through the forest that they feel worse than they started when they were stressed, when they left home. So
that's it.
It's a great get outside, sunlight. There's a lot of science starting to build about the positive impacts of what sunlight does to the body and recharges us. So again, that's your life force, your chi energy.
Get moving.
I always wondered, and I was talking to a friend that worked in outdoors for 50 odd years on the farms, and from a young age, and she said, the sunlight recharges you. So I was thinking, like, lots of heavy labor out in the field all day, you're probably gonna have to have 3 meals, you're gonna have to build up your muscle, and actually no, didn't really need to eat much, because like a solar panel takes sun and energizes, we are organic matter, and the more we are out in sunshine, and I've got quite a few friends like you have that live abroad, and like they say, when they move from this country to somewhere where the sun shines a lot more, they feel happier, lighter, revitalized, energized. And so the sun is a big part. And another thing is play, your favorite one, play,
Creativity,
fun, creativity, comedy, laughter. All of these sort of things are building, the obvious ones for energizing is when me and you have been to we've got a few good friends where we get together with a little collective, and 3, 4, 5 hours with them, we come back and we're on a high.
It's a social event.
The social side, and that's a big sort of important thing.
It's sharing, it's connecting. All of these things are connecting with things. So connecting with nature, connecting with your friends that uplift you. And when you were saying about nature, I was also thinking that when you actually look at nature, nature teaches us a lot about life. Even if you just look at a small square of ground, you might be sitting on a bench and you see a small piece of ground, just look at it. Look at all those different insects, different flowers, different varieties of herbs maybe, and how things interact with each other and they get alongside with each other. So nature is, I think, beautiful in it's very healing.
Well, it's beauty. Beauty is absolutely another energizer.
Or even cloud watching. It's just that peacefulness of watching the clouds form, and maybe use your imagination, pick out shapes, make up stories about them. Actually, if we can go back to the innocence of our childhood before it all got too complicated
and too busy
and
talking of like things that energize us, what always amazes me, when a few years ago we were going to Latin dancing, we were learning, not very good all the time, but both of us have got left feet, and
we were good in the beginners
class, and we were world class in the beginners class.
But when we got up to intermediates, it got a little bit too much left and right.
We were world class.
For Bill being a dyslexic,
we were world class at beginners. I think we went back about 2 times to just do the beginners again.
We know a bit of the cha-cha-cha.
So we never really stepped outside the next zone. But what amazed me, coming to the point, is that with that dance, the same as when we go to the gym, and you exercise, even though you're using up kilojoules, calories, you are actually more energized when you come out of the gym, or when we used to finish dancing, even though it was exhausting, we would come back sweating,
you'd be high
and lose a lot of weight. And I can see why, TV programs, they lose a lot of weight
when they do strictly.
But even after an hour and a half of dancing, we would still in some way feel more energized. So there is this other form of life force energy that we've got to pay attention to, because it's every bit as important as basic 3D
That's it. It's
kilojoules.
inspiration as well.
Inspiration,
that's what
and
artists get, is their
yeah, that's what they get.
inspiration. Or
and David Hawkins, for anyone that's not come across his work, he's got a great book called Let Go, and it's one of my favorites because what David Hawkins, I think we lost him a few years ago, but what his work was synonymous with was the calibration of energy and emotions, isn't it?
Yes.
He understood that energy, like we've always talked about with our clients, energy is emotion, energy in motion, and he would actually he would calibrate emotions a certain score, wouldn't he? So he would sort of say, yeah, so of course the ones that are right at the top that energize us: love, unconditional love, joy, happiness, laughter, all of them good things. And there's a load more than that at the top of the scale. And then looking at the worst ones: hate, shame, guilt, all of those are real heavy emotions. And I think, what we've got to try and do with our energy audit, if we start to become more aware, sit back, check in, see what your body's doing, work with your journal, we won't go into it now because we've talked about this before, but with Power Hour, the Power Hour is basically whether you have an hour or 20 minutes for the first part of the day. And I would highly recommend you guys checking out that video that we've done on that. It's really interesting because the power that is really about building the energy for the first part of the day, isn't it? That you energize yourself.
Yes, yeah. And it's feeding your senses.
Yeah.
It's like a back rub, or
yes, please.
It is. It's about that touch, that connection between two people, or even if you have a masseur and they do give you a massage, that gives you that feel good factor, which gives you good energy.
Yeah, it does.
So there's so many ways, and we're all individual and we all have our preferences. So it's working out what works for you, what takes you closer to feeling good about yourself, and do less of the things that make you feel worse and drain your energy. And only you working out in your journal, listening to your body, will you start to understand what works for you. Some people like touch, other people can't bear to be touched, but they will love music and they will get something from music.
We've got to be very careful not to keep comparing ourselves against others, haven't we? Because what we've seen with clients over the years, and even noticing the differences in our own behavior living together, is that some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, some of us like the felt senses of the external world, and some prefer the internal senses of intuition, and they like to spend a lot more time alone in their creative, imaginative world. So the secret of self-awareness is from an energy point of view, isn't it? What we've found worked is getting to know yourself, self-discovery, self-awareness, because when you know how your energy recharges, how it depletes, who and what are the energy vampires in your life. Once you start to realize that, you can work with it, because I think so much in the world, and my big thing that I'm an anti with is obviously the phone, because I call it the phone, the mobile phones that we've all got the kryptonite that drains our energy. And people don't realize that when they're scrolling, I think, and don't quote me on these figures, but I think the conscious mind pays attention to something like 40 bits of information a second. The unconscious mind is paying attention to millions of bits of information. So of course, what is happening when we're scrolling through the phone? We think we're not reading it, but our subconscious is reading it. So when we sort of have spent an hour scrolling on our phone and we come off and we're a bit de-energized, what we've actually done, our subconscious has fed in all that drag, all that information. And a lot of it might have been useless, but the brain is still, and it's tiring. So if you ever wondered why your phone, you spent some time scrolling, it will take your energy away. The phone is that kryptonite. So, and
it's the same as watching television news just before you go to bed. If you're going to listen to all that drama, you're going to take all that to bed with you. So your sleep isn't going to be restful.
And there's been some science to show that, some people go, especially if they live alone or they like to go to bed with some noise, they'll go to bed with the news on. And although they think, oh, I'm asleep, it's okay, the
It's
subconscious
working in the background.
is actually working, reading all the news. So you could have 4 hours of bad negative news that your subconscious, and you wonder why you wake up in the morning and you're just really heavy and traumatized. So we've got one tool each, Jane, to finish with. What do you want to start with your tool?
So mine is what we call the sports stadium, and we say, you've got 4 gears. So the first gear that you use is lay in the sun. So that's using your energy for small tasks, things that don't need a lot of energy. So, it might be the washing up or, tidying or paying bills, things that don't really need a lot of energy. Then the second gear is sort of walking around the track of that stadium. And that might be something that demands a bit more of your energy. And, you use your pot of energy, right? Okay, I'll do the ironing, or I'll do the shopping, or the, whatever it is that your work is.
Nothing too demanding.
Nothing too demanding. And then the third one is, when you need a bit more energy, and it's the busy tasks. So it might be all the things like running around town, going to the gym, things that expend more of that pot of energy that you need. And then finally is the sprint. Now, we haven't got a lot of sprint energy, so use it wisely. So some people live their lives on sprint energy, and then, after a few weeks, they fall ill, or they might have an injury, or, they're putting too much at the wrong time. So it's about balancing our energy. And, so when you're prioritizing your day, look at your tasks and look at how much energy they take, and decide, you make the decision, what task needs most energy. There's no point if you're doing something for somebody else and they get all your energy, and then at the end of the day, when you need some energy, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. You just reminded me, actually, because with, the last couple of years, with us living in such unusual transformational times, what I've been working with my Instagram influencers and public figures, the ones that have got agents, because an agent will tend to book my client, in clock time, what I call clock time. So there will be 11 o'clock for this appointment, 1 o'clock for that appointment, and radio 2 for 2 o'clock, and 6 o'clock radio show with Sarah Cox. And they're basically putting, parking the cars in these little spaces with no consideration for how much energy each one of those is expending. Now, on a good day, each of those might be a bit of a breeze. They've done it all before. They've done them interviews. They've done them PR pitches. They've done that marketing and brand presentation to a corporate company they're working for. That's not a problem. But if they've got 3 or 4 or 5 really high energy demanding tasks in front of them in a row, some of them have been crashing and burning in the evening. So you've got to pay attention. Don't measure by what I would call clock time. Measure it, like you were really saying at the tail there. Measure it by how much energy you're going to have to expend on that particular task.
Yeah. So, it might be talking about something that's very emotional. And of course, emotions take up more energy than some physical tasks. So, give yourself a break and say, well, actually, I've just spent an hour talking to somebody about, or listening to somebody with, real problems. You're not going to just bounce back afterwards. So that's another way of looking at managing your energy.
I'm going to finish with, and this is based on Dan Pink's book, When, and this is one of my favorites. I call it Energy Map. And what Dan worked out, talking to a lot of scientists and high performance sort of consultants, was in the corporate world especially, was that we basically, his sort of thesis, his understanding is that we all move through a series throughout the day of peaks, troughs and recovery. So imagine the iconic image of a heartbeat monitor, where it's that sort of up and down. So we literally start in the trough, we wake up and we work up through a recovery to a peak in the day, and then we'll come down the other side, and then we'll come into the trough again, and we'll come back up to a peak. So this cycle goes on 2 or 3 different cycles per day. And the understanding is that if you can work out where your energy's high points, your peaks are, So we're talking about cognitive and emotional peaks, because I'll give you an example because it's sort of easier to explain, is that, say for instance, me and you wake up just before 6 o'clock. Our cognitive and emotional high, by the time our brain starts to warm up and our body starts to sort of really get centered and get highly focused, we're looking at a peak that starts about 8:30 for productivity, for effectiveness, and that will run to about 12 o'clock. So that is a period where our brain is highly cognitive, it is highly functioning, our emotions are fired up. And what we should be doing is any hard problems, any sort of problem solving, any sort of number demanding, cognitive challenging exercises we should be doing then, because then what happens once you hit the peak and you start coming down the other side towards the trough, what your brain and your body and your emotions are basically saying is, I need a bit of a rest now. And if you are trying to do the wrong task at the wrong time, it can take you up to 3. So I'll give an example. If like 3 o'clock is your low, your absolute trough, and it's funny that a lot of people's blood sugar levels dive. So you start to get, you start to get hungry. You want that sugar. Tea and biscuit. You want that biscuit. You want that. You're just talking about me now, aren't you?
Yes.
We want that sort of that sugar, spike. The worst thing we can try and do is, a highly demanding.
Force it.
A challenge that wants to really demand a lot of brain power, and we're literally trying to run a Lamborghini 200-mile-an-hour engine at 30 mile an hour, because that's its maximum limit. So what we end up finding is that you will take 3-4 times longer to do the same task, whereas if you'd have caught it at 10:30 in the morning when your brain is firing and absolute sparking. Only you, we've got 2 types of people, which is what Dan Pink talked about. He talked about night owls that tend to get up later, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he talked about larks,
early morning larks.
And which we are.
Yes.
And depending on whether you're a night owl or lark, will have to set your energy map for the day. And I think, go, by all means, check his book out. He'll probably explained it a lot better than I did. But the concept, basically, back to the nuts and bolts of it is, try and work out when your energies are high and low. And because we get something called a second wind. So I find that with myself, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm starting to spark up again and get a bit of a second wind. I'm starting to get very creative. Well, that's a good time for creativity. 4:30, 5, 6 o'clock. Some people even have a third wind in the evening, where they have a couple of hours where they're really highly creative. Only you and your body and what you intake from foods and sugars, but particularly what time you get up, only you can decide what your energy map is. But you can actually save a lot of energy and time by understanding.
The other one thing that I would say is we all have this false illusion that multitasking, especially that women can multitask, but it's not true. Our brains are geared really to do one thing at a time. We can do one thing well. If we multitask, we're doing 10 things not so well. And also, if you get interrupted when you're doing a task, say, and this is a common one with clients is, if they're working in an office or something where they get interruptions all the time. Again, the phone pinging or emails or someone knocking on the door wanting their time and attention. Well, actually, you have to, ring fence and value your time, because otherwise, you're going to lose out, because it will take you up to 23 minutes or something
to get that same,
to get back to that focus of that task. So you could be pulled all over the place all day, not getting anything done. And isn't that a frustrating feeling?
There's actually a lot of science now that I've started to read just recently. And thank you for mentioning that, because that's a really good point, because, we've got to get more into monotasking and not multitasking. Multitasking, wherever it came from, it's a fallacy, it's a lie. It does not work, because as we know, switching from one task to another not only takes you a lot of energy to get to that another task, but actually to get back to the other task, to get your focus again, to pick up from where you left off, and this is why, the interruptions in the office, I will say to people all the time, come up with some sort of formula, some agreement in your
Yes.
office where, you know, whether it's putting a little sign on your computer or whatever, because,
Close the office door.
you know, if people keep interrupting you, you are never, and I think this was the big thing, to be honest. We've got a lot of friends and clients and family even that were really didn't want to go back to the work office 5 days a week, because they realized they were so much more productive at home without interruptions.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a great point to finish with. So, Jane, it's been brilliant. Thank you for joining me on these.
Thank you, Bill.
We've really enjoyed it. And, you know, these are, that's number 10 of a 10-part series, which backs up the book, Create Your Own Life Story. Guys, I hope you enjoy it. There's lots in there to take away. We are living in unusual times, transformational times. And, you know, the way we did things before is not going to work for us going forward. And I think, as we're seeing with our coaching, people are changing in so many different ways.
There's lots of opportunities and possibilities. You know, it's not all negative. You know, I think it's very important to see that the way forward can be different.
Yeah, and better.
And better.
And because, you know, we've got this fallacy that before the pandemic, everything was okay. No,
Let's
it
get
wasn't.
back to normal. No.
But it wasn't. We were getting lots of people and lots of clients close to breakdown and burnout anyway. And they were all saying, you know, paraphrasing, push the button, I just want to get off and have a rest for a bit. So things, you know, let's not get carried away that we can blame everything on the pandemic, because before that, we were coming close to a crash anyway. Faster, quicker, more just wasn't working for us. So what the pandemic basically done was accelerate us to start looking at different ways of living, a different way that can fulfill us and give us sort of, you know, more meaning. So thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll be back and doing some more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.